thy sight. Amen. Well, good morning. It is very good to see all of you and be with you once again. We are in the middle of an interesting 2 weeks. If you're a sports fan, we're in the middle of the Olympics that normally come around every 4 years, but here we are celebrating the 2020 Olympics in 2021, which seems fairly normal with what's been going on the last year and a half. And a lot of us really love certain sports that only seem to be on TV during the Olympics, what we call Olympic sports, like track and field, or for me, swimming. I love to watch swimming. You might like some of the other sports like volleyball or some of that stuff. And it's been really fun to watch. And you see these athletes where the human body is kind of at its peak physical conditioning. Athletes who have pushed their body for 4 years for this one moment. And it's kind of fun to see, oh, wow, this is what human beings are capable of doing. These chiseled humans just performing at such a high level. And I'm sure for a lot of athletes, they're going and trying their best, hoping to do their best. And no matter what happens, they got to participate in the Olympics. But it seems like every Olympics, there are a handful of elite athletes where the pressure is enormous because we demand nothing less than gold. People like Michael Phelps, people like Simone Biles, people, who have performed at this high level, and the expectation is immense. And it's almost, you see that pressure building, because it's like, you need to train for 4 years, you need to do this, and you need to get gold so that I feel better watching you perform. And they also make a lot of money. I think Michael Phelps is worth like $50 million or something. Simone Biles makes so much money performing at the top of their profession. And because of all that money, because of all that's going on, there's a lot of people around in their lives that are putting this pressure and making a claim on them. You can't just win gold for yourself. You have to win gold so the TV networks can run a great story. And you have to win gold because all these advertisers are paying you to win gold. You have to win gold so that your business manager, your talent agent, all of these people, you have to win gold so that those of us watching who have never done any type of gymnastics can somehow feel better about ourselves. And it's almost like we want someone to perform for us. It's like, dance for us, do this for us, do that, and sacrifice everything just for me. And you wonder, how healthy is that? To be so singularly focused and for us to like make a claim on these athletes and sort of say, I want you to give up everything for my entertainment. And your long-term physical health doesn't matter. Your short-term mental and emotional health doesn't matter. I just want you to perform for me. And it seems like even though you look at these athletes, you're like, wow, you're at the peak physical condition. How healthy must they be? I wonder sometimes how deeply healthy it is for emotionally and spiritually and mentally for people to put so much into being so singularly focused. And I remember for me, I was a swimmer in college and I was pretty good. I wasn't anywhere near the Olympics. I would be, floundering, and they would call a lifeguard for me if I was competing in the Olympics. But I also remember my coach teaching us this great lesson. He said, your time tells you how good you did, and your place tells you how good your competition was. And so there could be meets and competitions I go to where I get last place, but for me, it was the best time I'd ever swam, and I had broken like a personal best, and I'd get out of the pool and people would be like, man, that stinks, you got last place. And I'm like, what are you talking about? For me, that was amazing. I love that. I'd love to do that again and again. Or other competitions you go to and you get you get first place, but you swam horribly and you didn't perform very well. And so internally you're like, oh, that was not good. And everyone externally is like, oh, congratulations, that's so amazing. And I didn't want to be obnoxious and be like, that was terrible. But internally, I'm like, I did not actually do a very good job. And I love these like timed sports like track and cross country and swimming, because you can compete against yourself. And those external forces trying to make a claim on you, you can just kind of brush off and ignore. I also wasn't at the Olympics or this elite level, but it taught me a lesson of who am I and how do I go about just being me. And I want to be the best me I can. And if that means I'm better or worse than other people, that's not important. I need to just be the best me I can be. But in these Olympics, we see people making a claim on these athletes. I want you to be this for me. And Simone Biles this week just said, the pressure's too much. I'm not mentally or emotionally healthy, and I need to step back and take a time out. And thankfully, a lot of people have been applauding her. A lot of people have been admiring her. But it's also her stepping back and saying, all these people making a claim and wanting me to be something other than just me is too much. And in today's gospel, we see people doing that to Jesus. They want to make a claim on Jesus. They want to say, you need to be this for me. Instead of saying dance or perform or do Jeanette, they say, make us bread. Because we just had Jesus feed the 5,000 people that we talked about last week, this amazing symbol of abundance. And now the people who remained follow Jesus, and they say, give us more bread. We want to make Jesus an earthly king, and we want to make Jesus a bread factory to feed our physical bodies. We want to make a claim on Jesus. We want to narrowly define who the Messiah is, and we want him to serve our physical needs. And instead, Jesus says, oh, this is so much bigger than your small need for physical bread. This is so much bigger than that. And in the end, Jesus is like, I just need to be me. And in that way, he says, I am the bread of life. Such a beautiful thing. When we come to Jesus, we come to Jesus as the bread of life. This is this mystical, spiritual, but also tangible thing that's so much bigger than the abundant feeding of the 5,000 last week. And it's revolutionary in context of culture, because in the Gospel of Mark, today's reading was from John, but in the Gospel of Mark, he writes the feeding of the 5,000 story right after the story of King Herod's feast. And these are literally assigned that way to show the contrast. So if you remember King Herod's feast, we read like 3 weeks ago, and King Herod is having this big feast with all the important people. And his daughter pleases him so much, he promises her whatever, and she says, I want the head of John the Baptist on a platter. And then they bring it out to this feast. And this is this gory, violent, kind of cannibalistic display of a human body. And in contrast to that, then shortly thereafter, you have the feeding of the 5,000 with Jesus giving bread abundantly. And now you have Jesus saying, I am the bread of life. And it works in total contrast to this gory, violent feast in King Herod's temple, or King Herod's palace. And now you have Jesus and the bread of life. And so when we come and every week we partake of this bread and we drink of this cup, we are coming to the bread of life, and we come to Jesus. And what we need to be reminded of today is that as we cling to Jesus, we don't make a claim and demand that Jesus be who we want Jesus to be. We cling to Jesus and we say, where you lead me, I will follow, as that great hymn and spiritual goes, where you lead me, I will follow. Unfortunately, we often have a tendency to cling to Jesus and say, this is great, now do what I want you to do. And I laugh because whenever I try to tell God what I want God to do, it doesn't really go well. But when I cling to Jesus and say, where you lead me, I will follow, life is so much more fulfilling. And I'm just letting Jesus be Jesus and hoping that it'll trickle down and that I can be me. And as we partake of the bread of life, we become more and more ourselves. And the world might not understand it. Other people might want to make claims on us, but we just need to be us. And we need to create space for us to be us, for Jesus to be Jesus, and for those people around us to just be themselves. Beautiful, loved, and enough. Amen.